What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. We got yet another jam-packed show today. What is going on with the SEC? Upsets all over the place. South Carolina takes down No. 4 Florida in 5 sets. Oh my good golly gracious. How did the Gamecocks do it, and what went wrong for the Gators? And Arkansas, unranked Arkansas, posts not one but 2 upsets over No. 14 Texas A&M. Oh, I've got an axe to grind today. What happened with the Aggies, and what went right for the Razorbacks? And the Sun Belt Conference kicks off this week. There's a different format to the Sun Belt Conference this week. Will Coastal Carolina, the heavy favorite, take it all? Or will Texas State three-peat? Also, we are approaching the end of the fall season, which means we have a few announcements to make. But as we approach the fall season, we got one more noteworthy match. A top 10 matchup in the Big 12 between No. 10 Kansas State and No. 3 Baylor. Who will come out on top? All that and more here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this glorious Tuesday afternoon, or Tuesday evening because of daylight savings. Again, I'm just not really the most ultimate fan of daylight savings, personally. Like, I think it's kinda just there, and then it's a little inconvenient. But that's just me. Alright, so actually before we move on, we actually have ourselves a couple announcements to make. So, for Set Point. So first and foremost, as I said, the fall season is pretty much coming to an end, which really sucks because that means there won't be any volleyball for the rest of the December and October. Like, normally this is the time where the women's volleyball teams are vying to win their conference, or playing in conference tournaments, or trying to vie for a spot in the NCAA tournament. Because of COVID, that is no longer the case. This means that the women's volleyball season will be continuing in January of 2021, and then this is pretty much all. And then December, late December, is pretty much the time where the NCAA men's volleyball season starts to peek its head out. And then early January is basically when the NCAA men's volleyball season begins, or at least for Division I, at least. So again, this whole COVID thing has just been a little bit of an inconvenience, honestly. So yeah, so we may have, in case of emergency, we may have to take a little bit of a hiatus. Set Point will have to take a little bit of a hiatus, unfortunately. It's unfortunate because I still want to keep on going, but there's not much to talk about because there won't be any fall matches. At the very least, there might be some high school volleyball to talk about. I mean, in California where I'm at, it's looking like high school sports will be being played on time, because I don't know for you Californians out there, but everything in California is pretty much back to purple for the most part. Orange County is back to purple, that's for sure. So, and that's pretty much where I get my sources. So overall, it's just going to be tricky for me to get some material. So. But we'll see. Maybe I could bring some guests on. I mean, I pretty much had to exhaust most of my guests already, so we'll see how it goes, though. Like maybe I could get a guest or two on for Set Point, and we'll see. It all depends. And okay, so that's the first announcement. So the second announcement is that Set Point will no longer be on from will be on from 5 p.m., but instead it'll end at 6 p.m. Why? Because there is a new show going on IE Sports Radio, and it's a darn good new show. It's called the North Cal Faithful Sports Show, and it's hosted by Big Dan, or Danny. You could follow him on Twitter at DannySF4915. That's the number 49 and 15. So, and you can follow the NorCal Faithful Show on Twitter at NCA Faithful with 2 L's. Or no, Faithful with 1 L and then IESR. So once again, that's at capital N, capital C, lowercase a, capital F, AITHFUL, capital IESR. And ESR is also capitalized. So that show's going to be coming on next week, and it'll be on from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. So Set Point won't be able to have that extra talking about when it comes to like all the previews and recaps and everything. But either way, it's like the season's fall season, like I said, is pretty much over. So if anything, it's kind of a convenience that the North Cal Faithful Sports Show is coming on, which is kind of good, but at the same time, now if I had material, I'd have to cram it down to like 1 hour. I mean, it's not that I don't mind or anything. I mean, it's actually gonna be a challenge. It'll be something to get used to, but I don't think it'll be too challenging for me. Like, I think I can handle it. So, and I think 1 hour will suffice. And that was what I used to do when it came to Set Point back in the day. I just used to have it for an hour, maybe a little over an hour. But now I'm just going to have to go from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time. So, yeah, it's going to be tough to get used to, but I can do it. But it's great that we have a new show on IE Sports Radio. And it just shows that IE Sports Radio continues to grow as a whole. So, I'm really excited. So, that's some good stuff right there. And also, we have... And in terms, and before we jump into the recaps of the SEC games, I actually have some volleyball news to share with you all, which means one thing. Cue the news music. Yes, I had to do that. So, the NVA, the National Volleyball Association, is going to continue its partnership with AVCA Volleyball, which is really awesome. And there's actually going to be a 2020 virtual convention coming up in December. So, that's going to be some fun times. So, that's cool and all. And I also got to give a shout to Ben Suttereth III for popping in the chat room. Thank you very much for tuning in. I definitely appreciate it. And it really means a lot that you tune in, and great job with your shows. Ben just recently hit 200 episodes with the weekend wrap-up show, so yeah, and apologies yet again for the little pop-up, but if you all didn't hear it, then it's no big deal. Anyway, thank you, Ben Suttereth III, for popping in the chat room, and yeah. Okay, so yeah, the NVA is still continuing its partnership with the AVCA Volleyball. That is awesome, and it's really going to be cool that there's going to be a virtual convention. I wish this convention was in person, but unfortunately, COVID happened, so that is a bummer. But it is what it is. Like we gotta live what we gotta live with. So. Alright, so now there is actually an update in terms of Big 12 volleyball schedules. So, unfortunately, Oklahoma at Iowa State, TCU at Oklahoma, Kansas State at TCU, and Texas at TCU have all been postponed, and they will be rescheduled for in the springtime. So, unfortunately for Texas, it ends its fall campaign at 14-0, 14-0, and they still have 2 more conference games to play against TCU. either way, I hate to be this guy, but I think Texas would have just stomped on TCU. TCU isn't one of the better teams in the Big 12, so unfortunately, I wouldn't have seen. I don't think we're missing too much, but at least they're going to reschedule it. I mean, for the other teams, it would be great to see. At least it would have been great to see the other teams reschedule. But like I said, the Big 12 the fall season is almost over, and the Big 12 with the TCU postponing its games, this means that this is the last week of the Big 12 of the fall season. So it really sucks, but honestly, it is what it is. I mean, I'd like to see it would have been great to see the Big 12 go on without a hitch, but unfortunately, things happened and COVID-19 happened. So that's pretty much the news regarding the Big 12. And yes. So other than that, yeah, just to I'm just going to double check to see if there's no other games on the schedule. Yep, no other games. So this is the last week of the Big 12, and I think the SEC, and this is also, no, next week is the last week of the SEC. But next week's SEC game features Ole Miss, or LSU at Ole Miss, which isn't really overly exciting. So this is pretty much the last full week we'll see of SEC volleyball. The ACC is done with its season, and then the Sun Belt Conference is in its last leg, as it's in the conference tournament, which I'll be previewing in the second segment of the show. So now, anyway, let's just end the chit chat and let's fast forward to the SEC upsets that happened last week. So let's start off with the big one. Let's start off with No. 4 Florida losing to South Carolina in 5 sets. This was played at the Carolina Volleyball Center. The match before this, Florida actually won 3-0. They swept South Carolina, and it was easy money. This game, however, was kind of a different game, as South Carolina won the first set 25-21. There were 16 ties and 5 lead changes. Spoiler alert: the 16 ties and the 5 lead changes were actually the most of any of the 5 sets that were played. So South Carolina took the first set. Florida rebounded and took the second set 25-17. There were only 2 ties and 1 lead change. In the third set, Florida took the third set 25-21. The third set had 5 ties and 2 lead changes, and it looked like order was being restored. It looked like Florida was ready to take down South Carolina a second time, because I knew South Carolina was going to give them a challenge, but I didn't think they were going to beat Florida. So 2-1, Florida led after the third set. But then South Carolina, I didn't know what happened in set number 4. South Carolina hammered Florida in set 4, 25-13. I couldn't believe they held Florida to only 13 points. Florida has one of the best offenses out there. They have a lot of talented players, such as Tara Caesar, Thayer Hall, Holly Carlton, and they only got held to 13 points. Like, you'll see what I mean when it comes to the hitting percentages and all those numbers. So you'll see. So the fifth set was tight back and forth, except that South Carolina led for the most part. There were only 4 ties and 1 lead change, and in the end, South Carolina won the fifth set 15-12, winning the match in 5 sets. Oh my gosh, Florida. We gotta talk. What are you doing? You're top 5 team in the nation, and you're losing to South Carolina. Granted, South Carolina is a solid team. I will say this, South Carolina is better than what most people give them credit for. It's just that I thought Florida was supposed to be this team that's supposed to be out for revenge, a team that's out for redemption, the team that split the SEC championship with Kentucky last year. Instead, they lost to South Carolina. It was on the road, but I just couldn't believe it. Now, looking at the stats, oh boy, let's look at the stats. Oh, I saw these stats earlier in the day. I was actually flabbergasted at some of these stats. So, let's start with South Carolina's stats. South Carolina was led by Riley Whitesides, who had 23 kills, only 4 hitting errors, and 46 attempts for a hitting percentage of .413. That right there is one way South Carolina will beat Florida. Because when you have a player like that that's going off, you're not going to be losing a whole lot of games. Kyla Manning had 16 kills, 6 hitting errors, 44 attempts for a hitting percentage of .227. And then Michaela Robinson had 12 kills, 3 hitting errors, 33 attempts for a hitting percentage of .273. Mackenzie Moorman also had chipped in 9 kills, only 1 hitting error, and 18 attempts for a hitting percentage of .444. She was quietly solid. And then South Carolina ran a 6-2 offense with Kaylee Ann Thompson dishing out 31 assists, while Mallory Dixon had 24 assists. In terms of service aces, they were led by Dixon and Manning, who each had 2 service aces apiece. In terms of digs, they were led by Camilla Kovas, who had 19 digs, while Dixon had 15 digs to go along with her 24 assists. Manning also chipped in 5 digs as well, and Whitesides and Thompson each had 7 as well. As a team, South Carolina had 59 digs, which is pretty good, and they also had 10 blocks overall. And they also hit .290 in the game, which was impressive. And in the sets that South Carolina won, they hit like really high. They hit 381 in the first set, 393 in set number 4, which they hammered Florida, and then oh my God, the 5th set was just bonkers. 5th set, you're all not going to want to believe this. South Carolina had 12 kills, 1 hitting error, 23 attempts for a hitting percentage of .478. Let me say that again. South Carolina had 12 kills in a set that went up to 15. 12 kills. You mean to tell me Florida's defense imitated Swiss cheese and they allowed South Carolina to get kill after kill after kill in set number 5? Those 12 kills are basically what, 4/5 of their points in that set. I can't imagine what the other 3 were. Like, good God. Like, good God, Florida. Like, no team can win a 5th set when you're giving up 12 kills. Like, what are the liberos doing? What are the blockers doing? Like, that's not like Florida. Like, Florida has some tall, talented players. It's just that 5th set really just boggled me. Like, when I first read that stat, I was like, oh my God, I feel sick. It's like if you're a fan of offense, that's one of your favorite, that's something you like to see. But if you're a fan of defense, then you don't want to see that stat. So, yeah, that 5th set really hurt Florida. And the fact that they only had 1 hitting error is also impressive. 12 kills and 1 hitting error as a team in that 5th set. Jeez. Alright, now let's go to Florida. Florida was led by Thayer Hall, who had 20 kills, 6 hitting errors, 50 attempts for a hitting percentage of .280, while Tara Caesar had 18 kills, 6 hitting errors, 46 attempts for a hitting percentage of .261. Holly Carlton had 12 kills, 3 errors, and 31 attempts for a hitting percentage of .290, while I'm probably going to butcher this girl's name. Nettie Okamor had 7 kills, 1 hitting error, and 9 attempts for a hitting percentage of .667. That's a small but quietly good stat right there. She didn't have the high number of kills, but it was still pretty good. Marley Monserez had 48 assists, while Florida had 4 aces altogether, with Monserez having 2 of them, and Paula Sarame and Riley Fisher each having 1 service ace. In terms of blocks, they actually had the same number of blocks that South Carolina had in 10. They actually had the same number of solo blocks and block assists as well, so that's pretty awesome. So in terms of digs were very spread out. Like, Their dig leader was Cesar, who had 14 digs, while Ellie McKissock had 12 digs. Marley Monserez and Paula Sarame each had 11 digs, which is, again, that's pretty impressive. They were only outdug by 2 against South Carolina. As a team, Florida hit 278, which isn't all that impressive, but it'll do. In set number 4, Florida hit a whopping .036. They only hit 36 for set number 4. Not 36%, 36, as in less than 1%. They had 9 hitting errors, or they had 9 kills and 8 hitting errors, and 28 swings. So, overall, I don't know what happened with Florida that 4th set, but they really dropped the ball on this one. So, and the surprising thing in set number 3 was that Florida hit 286 in set 3 despite winning that set. So I'm more confused than ever. And another weird thing is that Florida hit 351 in set 1, only totaling 2 hitting errors, but they lost that first set. So Florida is really like all over the place with these statistics. It's like, wow. I just can't believe South Carolina beat a top 5 team. Like, that's just darn impressive. Like, there were only 2 teams undefeated in the SEC going into last weekend, and that was Kentucky, who was the number 2 team in the nation, and Florida, the number 4 team in the nation, not 4-2 team. Unfortunately, now there's only one undefeated team in the SEC, and that is Kentucky. And spoiler alert, Kentucky won their 2 matchups. They beat Mississippi State twice, which is no surprise because when you're facing Kentucky, it's a whole new ball game. They are a much different team than Texas A&M. So that's actually a good segue to talk about in terms of the other SEC upsets. And this time I said upsets because Texas A&M lost twice to Arkansas. I can't believe you... Texas A&M, you know, for those of you that remember what I said last week, I said that I was going to grind my axe and I was going to let Texas A&M have it if they somehow lose a match to Arkansas. This time, they've doubled their trouble. All right, so let's go over the Texas A&M with Arkansas matchup. So the first set, Texas A&M hammered Arkansas, winning the first set 25-15, and then I'm thinking, okay, Texas A&M looks like they are back on track, and they aren't going to let anything slow them down, as Texas A&M was also posting its little video clips of its players, all cheerful and happy and positive and all that. They actually have a pretty good social media team, and I dig that, so good on them. All right, so set number 2 was a whole different story, as Arkansas took the second set 25-21, and it's like, okay, I kind of knew Arkansas. Okay, Arkansas actually remembered to win close sets, unlike last weekend when they played Missouri, so good for you, Arkansas. So then set 3, oh, by the way, set 1 had 5 ties and 1 lead change. Set 2 was just all Arkansas, as there was only 1 tie and 1 lead change. It's like, come on, really? Then set 3 was a little closer with 6 ties and 2 lead changes, but Arkansas took the third set 25-20, and it's like, okay, Texas A&M, you got to pull it back together. Don't lose it. And then set 4 had 8 ties, 2 lead changes, and it was back and forth. Texas A&M did not want to lose on the road, but unfortunately Arkansas said no to that, as they won the 4th set 25-21, and they upset Texas A&M, which... Aggies, you're killing me. Let's look at the stats. So, Arkansas was led by Devin Wheeler, who had 15 kills, only 3 hitting errors, and 25 attempts for a hitting percentage of .480. Good numbers right there. Jillian Gillen had 14 kills, 4 hitting errors, 41 attempts for a hitting percentage of .244, while Haley Durgel had 10 kills, 5 hitting errors, 21 attempts for a hitting percentage of .238. And then they got 6 kills apiece from Taylor Head and Elizabeth Pamphile. In terms of assists, they were led by Gracie Ryan, who had 47 assists. And in terms of serves, they had 9 service errors, and Durgel and Lauren Evans had 3 service aces, which was pretty darn impressive. That's some good stuff right there. In terms of digs, they were actually outdug by 3, but they were led by Lauren Evans, who had 17 digs, while Taylor Head had 11 digs. And then Savannah Downing chipped in 8 digs, while Jillian Gillen added 7, and Ryan added 6. And as a team, Arkansas hit .230, which is actually pretty good. I didn't think... Well, actually, no, it's not the greatest hitting percentage, but if you see Texas A&M's hitting percentage, that's better than what Texas A&M hit. All right, so Texas A&M was led by Morgan Christon. I'm just going to call her Morgan Christon, who had 20 kills, 6 hitting errors, 38 cents for hitting percentage of .368. That's actually pretty good. 20 kills and then 38 attempts, that's good on its own. Morgan Davis was the only other double-digit kill leader who had 10 kills, 3 hitting errors, 18 attempts for a hitting percentage of .389. After that, it was only Lauren Davis who had 6 kills, 5 hitting errors, 24 attempts, only a hitting percentage of 42. In case you're wondering, Lauren Davis and Morgan Davis are sisters. Camille Connor led the way in terms of assists with 35, while in terms of service aces, Texas A&M had 7, with Carly Basham, Taylor Voss, and Morgan Christon each registering 2 aces. In terms of digs, they had 55 digs as a team, and then they were led by Sabrina Sastala, who was making her debut with 17 digs, while Carly Basham had 13 digs, and Morgan Christon had 9 digs as well. And then Camille Connor chipped in 8 digs, so that's some good stuff right there. Now, as a team, guys, everybody, and thank you for joining me, Marcus, and thank you for popping in as well, Adam. So, now for Texas A&M's hitting percentage. Texas A&M hit a whopping, can we get a drum roll, please? Texas A&M hit a whopping 175. 175. Didn't I tell you with subpar stats, you're not going to win games? Like, what are you doing, Texas A&M? Didn't you learn anything from when you lost to Mississippi State last week? When you have subpar stats, you're not going to win games. Like, it was one thing with Mississippi State, but now you lose to Arkansas is much better than Mississippi State in terms of records, but honestly, but then you could also make the argument Mississippi State won at Texas A&M, where Arkansas won at Arkansas against Texas A&M. But still, Texas A&M, you can't be having subpar statistics. It's funny how they outdug the opposing team, but they're posting like really average offensive stats. And then in terms of blocks, Arkansas had 14 blocks, while Texas A&M had 9, which that's another way you're not going to win. You're not going to win by getting outblocked by the other team. Like, that's probably one of the reasons why A&M had such a low hitting percentage. I mean, 175 isn't too low, but when you're hitting in the 100s, that's not going to help you win games. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, come on, Texas A&M, do better. And Adam says, no matter the game, subpar stats won't get it done. Facts. Like, people always lie. That is a well-known fact. But what you want to know, the one thing that doesn't lie? Numbers. And for that hitting percentage, it showed why Texas A&M didn't win. Like, Arkansas only hit .230. Like, you would think Texas A&M would push the match to 5. But instead, they lost to another unranked SEC team. It's like, what are you doing, Texas A&M? Like, this is kind of the problem with A&M having such a paper soft schedule. Like, they played LSU. Okay, that was a decent match. And they played Ole Miss. They're not really that high on the SEC ladder. Then they played Mississippi State. I don't know what went wrong with them, but they lost both of those matches, and then they lost to Arkansas that night. It's like, and also I checked Texas A&M's roster. They looked healthy for the most part. They didn't have any key players out, so I don't know what Texas A&M was doing. I mean, obviously they had a different libero in, so maybe maybe Coach Bird was trying to shuffle around the lineup, but still, like, what are you doing, man? Like, that's not how you win games. The nerve of you. I'm sorry, Marcus, but I gotta rip that out. I gotta borrow your catchphrase. The nerve of you, Texas A&M. You don't deserve to be top 15. You don't deserve to be ranked. You had me thinking that your team was going to be full of promise early on in the season. And as far as I'm concerned, you ain't winning the SEC. You are not winning the SEC. That is a darn known fact. That honor belongs to Kentucky or Florida. Heck, maybe even Arkansas can win it. But you're not winning it, Texas A&M. I'm sorry. Alright, now let's get into the second matchup between these two. Oh my gosh, I gotta calm down. Alright, so the first set between Texas A&M and Arkansas. Okay, that had 11 ties and 15 lead changes, and it actually went past... And actually, Arkansas was leading for the most part in that first set, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Texas A&M's going to really blow this, aren't they? Nope, Texas A&M actually took the first set 31-29. I'm like, okay. Order has been restored. Texas A&M got their bell woken up, and now bell woken up yesterday, and now they're back on a warpath. I was wrong on that one. Arkansas won the second set 25-20. There was only 4 ties and 1 lead change, which was the lowest of the 4 sets that were played. And then the third set, it was another tight set between A&M and Arkansas. I think this time Arkansas and A&M were back and forth, and I think A&M grabbed a late lead, and then Arkansas managed to scurry their way back into the game, and then eventually Arkansas won the third set 26-24. There are 8 ties and 24 lead changes, and now Arkansas, just like the day before, they were up 2-1 in the match. So it's like, oh my god, I'm like, nothing against Arkansas. It's like, they're a good team, they're a respectable team, and I knew they were going to give Texas A&M some trouble, but I didn't think they'd be beating TAMU. Like, again, I thought Texas A&M had promise this year. And then, again, the schedule, Texas A&M's schedule looked pretty much like a cakewalk. But instead, they wet the bed. But, yeah, set 4 was back and forth. There were 5 ties and 5 lead changes. Texas A&M trying to do all that it can to force the 5th set. But unfortunately, it didn't work out, as Arkansas took the 4th set 25-20 and the match, finishing their fall record at 6-2, while Texas A&M, which started 4-0, finishes the fall season 4-4. I am about to grind my axe on A&M. Alright, but first let's look at the stats. Arkansas was led by Jillian Gillen, who had 18 kills, only 3 hitting errors, but she did take 57 swings. Like, she was a woman on a mission. She hit .263 for the match, while Taylor Head had 12 kills. She had 9 hitting errors, which was kind of a negative for Arkansas, but when you have other players stepping up, then that stat is kind of doesn't matter. She took 46 swings, and she hit 65 for the match, which isn't good, but she got help from other players, such as Devin Wheeler, who had 11 kills, 3 hitting errors, 27 attempts for a hitting percentage of .296, and then Haley Durgel and Elizabeth Pamphile chipped in 7 kills apiece, which is cool. Like Arkansas's had a balanced attack, which was really good. I thought they were fully prepared, and I thought they did everything correct in order to win the match. And then for assists, they were led by Gracie Ryan, who had 45 assists. In terms of service aces, they only had 4 on the night, and all of them went to Jillian Gillen. All 4 service aces went to Jillian Gillen, which is quite nice. Oh, and now the digs were so mind-blowing. Arkansas as a team had 81 digs. They were led by Lauren Evans, who had 20 digs, while Jillian Gillen had 18 digs, giving her an 18 for 18 matchup. Gracie Ryan had 16 digs, which gave her a double-double. And Taylor Head had 14 digs, which also gave her a double-double. So that's some good stuff as well. And Arkansas had 5.5 blocks altogether. So good stuff. Which, I mean, 5.5 blocks isn't great, but again, they had solid numbers all around. Like, they had 81 digs. Now as a team, Arkansas hit 217, which, again, low hitting percentage, but the fact that Arkansas was able to grind out that win, that's pretty good. And also it helps when they have a great defense in terms of digging. And then also when it comes to a balanced offense where there's not one person that's carrying the load, it makes for a better result. Like unlike teams like Baylor, who pretty much banked on one player to win, Arkansas pretty much spread the wealth all over the place. So I salute Arkansas for that. So now for Texas A&M stats. Oh boy. Their stats are also all over the place. They were led by Morgan Christon, who had 23 kills. She had 14 hitting errors in 69 attempts, and she had a hitting percentage of 130. I don't get why she took that many attempts. Like, I'm not going to question, but maybe the coach thought, let's let her take some swings. Maybe she was just using her as a diversion to lure the other players away. Or maybe to just fake out Arkansas. Like, maybe that's why Arkansas won, because Texas A&M overthought things. They were overthinking, and then they tried to one-up their opponent, and you can't one-up your opponent. You gotta 7-up your opponent. And I'm pretty sure that's a drink. Anyway, Lauren Davis had 12 kills, 6 hitting errors, 48 attempts for a hitting percentage of 125. Morgan Davis had 10 kills, 1 hitting error, 19 attempts for a hitting percentage of 474. Okay, that's some good stuff. Camille Connor had 46 assists, while the service aces, Texas A&M only had 3, coming from Cameron Ennis, Mallory Talbert, and Camille Connor. In terms of digs, now, Texas A&M had 93 digs. I was shocked when Texas A&M had, and Adam says, this is easily the most animated I've heard Teran. I appreciate it, and I would go louder, but I don't want to disturb the peace, but it's whatever. Alright, so now, Texas A&M had 93 digs. 93! They had 93 of them things, and yet they still lost. How do you have 93 digs, but you lose? And all these digs were just so spread out. Allison Fields had 25 digs, while Morgan Christon had 20 digs. Sabrina Sestala had 16 digs. Camille Connor had 10 digs. Like, they had 4 players in double digits in terms of digs. And then 2 of them had 20-plus digs. I'm just so flabbergasted on how Texas A&M had those stats, but then they lost. Then we also have to look at their blocks. They had 11 blocks. Keep in mind, Arkansas had half of that. It's like, what? What are you... Oh my goodness. Like, you have those stats on defense, and you're not getting the job done. Now, here's the statistic that's going to break the camel's back. Here it is. Everybody, listen. Gather around. Texas A&M hit a whopping, I'm not even going to have a drum roll. Texas A&M hit 136 for the match. Are you kidding me? 136 for the match. You cannot hit 136 and expect to win a game. Oh my gosh. And the worst part is, Arkansas had fewer blocks than Texas A&M. They only had 5.5. Like, unless A&M was hitting off the antenna 99.9 times out of 100, you can't hit 136. And honestly, Davis was the only player who in double digits had a hitting percentage over 300. But I just can't believe Texas A&M had those numbers. It's like they dominate defensively, and then they lay an egg on offense. I would reference a certain NFL team, but I don't know if the... you know what? I'm going to reference them. Texas A&M kind of resembled the Bears from yesterday, the Chicago Bears. And no offense, Adam, but let me just tell you, Texas A&M had great defense, but they couldn't turn that into points. And that has to be frustrating for Texas A&M because I know Texas A&M is a much better team than this. But the problem is they can't convert into offense. Like last week and this week should have probably been wins. Would it have been ugly wins? Of course. Is the team obviously disappointed? Absolutely. But if I'm Texas A&M, I'm doing some soul searching, and I'm looking at why the heck we're dominating in the defensive department and not turning that into points. Like, you could dominate the defense all you want, but if you can't convert that into points, you're not going to win the sport of volleyball. You're not going to win any sport in general. And I think the Bears learned that the hard way. And again, no offense about Adam. And Adam says all defense and no offense. Man, I know that feeling. Bingo. Yeah, and definitely do check out Chi-Town Weekly every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Adam does a great job with his show. But anyway, back to Texas A&M. You start the season 4-0, and then you finish the season 0-4 for a 4-4 record. I mean, Texas A&M looked a little suspect when they had to go 5 with LSU, and then they also had to go. They had to go 4 sets with Ole Miss. So, in reality, I shouldn't be overly surprised that Texas A&M had to go 4. I'm not overly surprised that Texas A&M lost to Arkansas and Mississippi State, but it's teams like Texas A&M, who was number 7 at the time, that should beat opponents with ease. Like, if they want to be like the Kentuckys and the Floridas, or they want to compete with those teams, they got to beat the little teams in order to compete with the big girl teams. Like, you just cannot, like, lose to these ticky-tack teams. It's like, why? After seeing these 2 losses, Texas A&M is not winning the SEC. Kentucky or Florida is going to win the SEC, and probably going to be Kentucky because Florida managed to lose to South Carolina, which again that was also a little disappointing as well. Granted, it was on the road, but still, like, come on Florida, come on Texas A&M. I'm just disappointed in them. Like, if I wasn't so concerned about disturbing the peace, I would go full rant mode. But I'm just gonna say you have disappointed me, Texas A&M. I don't know what. I have nothing else to say to you. That's that for you. Oh my goodness. But at least the SEC has proven to have some sort of parity. The only non-parity like thing is that Kentucky is still beating everybody. Like, Kentucky has finished their fall season 8-0. Florida is 5-1, and this week they play Georgia. I think they're at home against Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost certain that Florida is at home versus Georgia. Yep, they are at home against Georgia. That's probably the only noteworthy matchup of the week, because other than that, it's basically Ole Miss versus Missouri, number 8 Missouri at Ole Miss, while Auburn plays Tennessee at Auburn. So, yeah, that's just going to show you that the fall season is winding down in terms of the NCAA women's volleyball fall season. But it will resume in January of 2021. And for those that are wondering, yeah, there might be a hiatus in terms of set point. So if you don't see any set point on Tuesday, don't worry, I'm not dead. I may just have to take a little bit of a hiatus. That's all, because there won't be a whole lot of material to work with. Like, I don't even know if we're going to get any high school sports in terms of me being in California, because all the nationally ranked teams like Mater Dei and Redondo Union won't be able to play, and it's going to be fun to see those two teams play, but if everything is still in purple, then we might not get a season until like maybe next year. Well, next calendar year, not next school year, so just a fair warning for you all. So, alright, with that being said, we're actually going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to preview number 10 Kansas State at number 3 Baylor, and I'll also preview the new look Sun Belt Conference. So you're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And you can check out my boy, Mr. Marcus Los Great, at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, after Set Point. We're not going to go to 7 p.m. Pacific Time. We're probably going to be done in a little bit, so yeah. But yeah, welcome back to the second segment of Set Point. In case you just missed it, I recapped all the SEC games for that, or the noteworthy SEC upsets that happened last week. And then I also talked a little about the Big 12 and the NBA. And then I also talked how Texas is still number one in the nation, and they are going to finish their season 14-0. Their fall season 14-0. So without any further delay, let's go into segment number 2. So there's actually only one noteworthy matchup for this week, but it's better than nothing. It's number 10 Kansas State at number 3 Baylor. So Kansas State has been the talk of the Big 12. They're not like on the level of Texas, but they're, other than Baylor, they are the only team to push Baylor to 5 sets. Or not Baylor to 5 sets, Texas to 5 sets. Having gone 5 sets earlier in the season. And that match was actually featured on ESPN, which is awesome. So as for Kansas State, like they are probably one of the most improved teams in the Big 12. Like, I thought Oklahoma was going to be the third place team, but this time we have ourselves a newcomer, and they go by the name of Kansas State. And they're actually not too far behind from Baylor. They're actually one game back in terms of the Big 12 standings. So it would be crucial if Kansas State won both of these matchups. And the funny thing is that these are the last matchups for both teams for Big 12 play. So there's that. So let's look at these teams and let's preview some action. So let's look at Kansas State, the newcomer who has had themselves a big game. They are led by Aaliyah Carter, who has 207 kills. She's only a freshman. That's the scary thing about Kansas State. Aaliyah Carter is only a freshman, and she's putting up those type of numbers, which is absolutely awesome. Like, major kudos to her for that. And I can only imagine what she's going to be like going forward. And she's probably making a push for the Big 12 Freshman of the Year. So that's some good stuff right there. And then the entire Kansas State team has a bright future ahead of them. They have themselves a good variety of young upcoming players, and they've accumulated only 4 losses, 2 of which were to Texas, which obviously that's Texas. 1 was to Iowa State in the season opener for all of the Big 12, and then they also lost at Kansas, which Kansas has been up and down this year. Like, I just can't believe it. So yeah, it's just mind-blowing that Aaliyah Carter's just putting up those numbers, and she's only a freshman. She's only 5'9", too. It's so just jaw-dropping. 5'9" freshman just putting up numbers like that. Like, that's awesome. Like, it just goes to show you don't need to be tall in order to dominate in sports. I'm just saying, y'all. Alright, so second in kills for Kansas State is Bryn Carlson, a redshirt junior outside hitter. She on the other hand, is 6'4", and she has 127 kills. And Carter is actually hitting 199 despite this. 199 isn't overly good, but she's only a freshman. While Bryn Carlson is hitting 230 on the year. Holly Bond is third on the team in kills with 103, and she's hitting 205. She is a redshirt sophomore outside hitter / opposite. And then fourth in kills is Cade Fernholz, the 6'1" middle blocker. She's also a freshman too, so she has 93 kills, and she's hitting 278 for the season. In terms of assists, Kansas State runs a 6-2 offense, which is pretty cool. They are led by Shelby Martin, the senior setter, who has 399 assists, while I think I'm going to butcher her. Tiana Adams Kanohi has 205 assists. She's only a sophomore, so I probably butchered her last name. The reason why the last part of her last name is so tough to pronounce is that she's from Hawaii, and she went to Punahou, which is awesome. In terms of, back to this whole shindig of Kansas State. They are led by, in terms of digs, they are led by Mackenzie Morris, a freshman libero who has 226 digs. And then in terms of second in digs, they are led by Jackie Smith, who is a redshirt junior, who's a defensive specialist / libero, who has 114 digs. Lauren Hinkle has 107 digs, and Hinkle is a sophomore defensive specialist / libero. And then Drew Cuck has 109 digs on the season. So this team has been digging the ball quite well. They've been distributing their digs quite nicely. When you have 3 or 4 players in the century mark in terms of digs, you're doing something right. As a team, Kansas State is hitting .235 while their opponents are hitting .202, which is nice and all. And they have 116 blocks overall while their opponents have 133. So while Kansas State isn't the most tallest team, they actually have some great athleticism. And this team's going to be dangerous when it comes to the near future. Like when Morris and Carter start to grow and get fully adapted into the college aspect of sports, then they're going to be this team could possibly overtake Texas. They could, but I don't know. Like, they're at least going to be in the top 3 of the Big 12. Like, I don't know if they'll overtake Texas, but at least maybe they can, like give them some trouble. So, that's some good stuff and all. And yeah, it's very impressive. It's a great thing, and I'm glad we're seeing a new up-and-comer attempting to try to dethrone the top high riser of the Big 12. So now let's move on to Baylor, the number 3 Bears, who had a bye last week, but are coming off of 2 losses to rival Texas. Baylor is led by none other than the human cannon herself, Yasonia Presley, who has 250 kills. She is second all-time in kills in terms of Baylor history. She's hitting .283 for the season, which is very impressive. I mean, that's some darn good hitting right there. Lauren Harrison is second on the team in kills, only a sophomore outside hitter. She has 140 digs. She's hitting .273, while Marquis Vandermark had 106 kills, and she has a hitting percentage of .243. While Cara McGee has barely surpassed the 100 kill mark, having 100 kills, and she's hitting .293 on the season, which is kind of good, pretty good. And she plays middle. McGee and Vandermark plays opposite, while McGee plays middle blocker. So that's some good stuff. In terms of assists, they are led by Callie Williams, who has 469 assists. And shout out to Davidson Crooks for joining me. Thank you so much for tuning in, my brother. I wish I was talking about the SEC. There were 3 upsets in the SEC last week. 2 were from Arkansas, who beat number 14 Texas A&M, while unranked South Carolina upset number 4 Florida in 5 sets. So don't tell Dentarius the other upset between Florida and South Carolina. But anyway, back to the preview of Baylor. Callie Williams has 469 assists, while in terms of digs, they are led by Chanel Bram-Schreiber, who has 190 digs on the year, and she's a junior libero / defensive specialist. I'm pretty sure she's the libero, though. And Callie Williams is second on the team in digs with 121, while Emily Van Slate is third on the teams in digs with 113, and she is a sophomore libero / defensive specialist. Baylor is hitting .278 as a team, while their opponents are hitting only .154. That's when you know this team's defense is legit. And in terms of blocks, they have 133.5 blocks on the season, while their opponents only have 83.5. So, while Baylor is getting stops in terms of stopping the opponents, they are also putting up offensive stats as well. So, that's some good stuff. So, Kansas State has their work cut out for them. Baylor is obviously licking their wounds, having lost to Texas last week, and they want to solidify. They pretty much want to put a stamp on second place in the Big 12. Obviously, it's not going to guarantee that they make the postseason, but Baylor should be a good at-large candidate, considering the Big 12 is a Power 5 conference. Baylor doesn't have too many bad losses. Their only other bad loss was to Kansas, but That's about it. And then Kansas State still has to play some non-conference play action, and they could pretty much schedule whomever they wish. So for me, Baylor has experience. Like, Baylor to me is that team that wants to get back on track, and their experience is probably going to be too much for Kansas State to handle. Like, Kansas State is definitely deserves its props for getting this far and for pretty much being in third place, because I thought Oklahoma was going to be the third place team, but they kind of regressed, so yeah. So to me, I think this is going to boil down to Baylor's experience versus Kansas State's athleticism, and again, they can't just bank on Aaliyah Carter to lead the way, because she's only 5'9", and she's only a freshman. Like, she can't just carry the team like that. So, in order for K-State to win, they're going to have to play really tough. And they have been playing a very solid schedule this year. But the problem is that I don't think they're as consistent as Baylor is. Like, Baylor has experience, and Baylor is also that team that is on a mission to get back to the NCAA championship. The only problem with Baylor, however, is that they can't win the Big 12 championship. Even if Texas loses twice to TCU, and then Baylor runs the table and wins both of these matchups, they're not going to win the Big 12. It won't work. So, this is basically for the silver medal in the Big 12. But I could also see Kansas State getting into the postseason. The only negative for Kansas State in terms of that is that, remember, the NCAA tournament field has been shortened from 64 teams all the way to 48. So in terms of overall losses, like, Kansas State can't have too many of those. But beating Baylor could strengthen their chances of making the NCAA tournament. I mean, it's still too early to see what will happen because we still have another half of a season to go in January. But I will say this would be huge for Kansas State because beating a top 5 team would be huge not only for their players but for their program. It would also goes to show you that how far Kansas State has come as a team. Like, I don't even think this team was I don't think this team was like top 5 in the Big 12 last year. They obviously didn't make the postseason, so either way, Kansas State they're gonna need to come with a lot. They need to come playing their A game, because if not, then Baylor's just gonna mop the floor with them. So here's my prediction. I'm gonna pick Baylor to win the first matchup in 4 sets. I'll say Baylor wins in 4 sets. And then for the second matchup, I hate to do this, but I think Baylor wins the second matchup in 5. You could also flip-flop those as well, but I think Kansas State has some punch to them, but I just think they're a year or 2 away from knocking off Baylor. When Yesenia Presley graduates, then next year, Baylor will probably be vulnerable to Kansas State's onslaught. But with Yesenia Presley still in the mix, she's just not gonna want to lose, and she, like, anything short of second place is a disappointment for Baylor, because to me, Baylor had high expectations as well as Texas, but they didn't live up to them. So, and also Baylor is number 3 in the coaches poll / in the AVCA poll, which basically means that they are under a Kentucky team who's only played 8 games. But Kentucky has some darn good wins. Like, they beat Missouri, who was top 10, and then they don't have any matches that they went 5 with. Their only other match that they had to go further than 3 sets was against Tennessee. So either way, I'm steering off course. So my point is that Baylor's experience is going to be too much for Kansas State as a whole. So I got Baylor winning the first matchup in 4 sets, and then the second match in 5 sets. Again, I could see Kansas State bringing some punch to the table, but I don't see them pulling off the big win. If they had like a preseason, then maybe I could see Kansas State pulling off some sort of victory. But since their only true matchup they've had, like the only true test that Kansas State has had was against Texas, and then Iowa State was an okay test, but Iowa State isn't overly good. So yeah. But, I got Baylor winning both these matchups. I could still see Kansas State making the NCAA tournament, but, like, it's going to be doubtful considering there are 16 automatic qualifiers, 16 conference champions, and then 32 automatic qualifiers. Like, even if you get, like, third place in, like, say the Pac-12 or the Big Ten, that's not even guaranteed. It's basically up to the playoff committee because the tournament field has been shortened, and yeah. We could be seeing a lot more teams in the NIVC, which is basically equivalent to the NIT. So, yeah. So that's pretty much that for the Kansas State Baylor matchup. I am looking forward to that matchup because that's the last ranked versus ranked matchup, unless we get Coastal Carolina versus Texas State. And speaking of Coastal Carolina versus Texas State, that is actually perfect segue to go into our next topic, being the Sun Belt Conference Tournament. So the Sun Belt Conference Tournament starts tomorrow, and they're doing everything super differently. Instead of giving teams byes, they are actually making this pool play. So, which is quite usual. I'm pretty sure they haven't done that because normally it would be like 5 versus 8 and then 6 versus 7, and then those teams would be facing other teams and whatnot. So, yeah. So that's gonna be cool and all, and I guess Pool A no longer has a third team, which sucks because that means it means that Pool A is gonna have one less team. Yeah, Arkansas State dropped from the tournament. I don't know why. Maybe they can't make it because of not enough players or whatnot. But either way, the Sun Belt Conference Tournament pool play has been updated. So here are the pools. Pool A consists of Coastal Carolina, the top seed, and then App State. And those two will be facing off against one another on Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Time. So whoever wins that matchup will pretty much go to the semifinals. Which, that's basically a lot of pressure for both teams. Whoever wins basically gets to continue their season, while whoever loses is basically out. Anyway, so for Pool B consists of Troy, who is the second place team from the Sun Belt Conference East. Coastal Carolina actually finished first in the Sun Belt Conference East. There are actually two divisions in terms of the Sun Belt Conference. The Sun Belt Conference East and the Sun Belt Conference West. Think of it as the Pac-12 South and the Pac-12 North in football, or the Big Ten South, the Big Ten West and the Big Ten East in college football. So this is kind of takes that little tournament format as well. So anyway, Pool B, it consists of Troy, the top seed, UT Arlington, the third place team from the Sun Belt Conference West, and then Georgia Southern, the fifth place team from the Sun Belt Conference East. So now for Pool C, we have Texas State, the top seed, who finished first in the Sun Belt Conference West, while South Alabama is the second seed as they finished fourth in the Sun Belt Conference East, and then the third seed in Pool C is UNL Monroe, which finished sixth in the Sun Belt Conference West. And then Pool D has second place Louisiana, which finished second in the Sun Belt Conference West, while Georgia State finished third in the Sun Belt Conference East. And then the bottom seed in Pool D is Little Rock, who finished fifth in the Sun Belt Conference West. So here's the schedule. So tomorrow, Louisiana plays Little Rock, Texas State plays UNL Monroe, and then Troy plays Georgia Southern. Thursday, Georgia State plays Little Rock, South Alabama plays UNL Monroe, Coastal Carolina plays App State, and then UT Arlington plays Georgia Southern. And then Friday, which concludes pool play, Louisiana plays Georgia State, Texas State plays South Alabama, and Troy plays UT Arlington. You can get the times on the Sunbelt Conference website. It's www.sunbeltsports.org. Just click menu and then click then scroll down to championships, and then go down to women's volleyball, and then the rest should be gravy. All right, so now for the semifinals. So the semifinals will be the first place team from each pool. The semifinals are on Saturday, and the winner of Pool A will get to play the winner of Pool D, while the other semifinal will consist of the winner of Pool B playing the winner of Pool C. And whoever wins the semifinals automatically goes to the finals of the Sun Belt Conference Championship, where semifinal 1 will be, or the winner of each semifinal will play each other on Sunday, and whoever wins that will automatically go to the NCAA tournament. All right, so I'm just going to give you all my predictions I'm just going to go quick and dirty for the Sun Belt Conference, and I'll give you all my predictions. So, and who wins each pool. So, Pool A, this one's a no-brainer. Coastal Carolina has not lost a match all season. They, along with Texas, who plays in the Big 12, are the only two undefeated teams that have played more than 10 games and that have won and have not lost a match. So, Coastal Carolina wins Pool A with ease, with the greatest of ease. It's sad that Arkansas State had to drop out, but c'est la vie. So, Pool B, this one's kind of tough. Believe it or not, I'm going to take UT Arlington. I think UT Arlington can shock the world. I wouldn't say shock the world, but I think UT Arlington, after they beat Texas State, is probably the most underwhelming team in the Sun Belt Conference. And again, they beat Texas State after in the final game of the regular season. The final Sun Belt Conference game of the regular season. So that's why I'm picking UT Arlington to win Pool B. Nothing against Troy, but I think UT Arlington is the underdog team, because they've had themselves an up and down season, but now they're getting back on track, and this is their time to shine. So Pool C, this one is also a no-brainer. I'm picking Texas State to win Pool C. I don't see any reason how Texas State doesn't win. Like, after they got shell-shocked by UT Arlington, as UT Arlington swept Texas State, I can see Texas State just getting back on track. They are under a new head coach, but I think that Texas State is still the juggernaut of the Sun Belt Conference in terms of women's volleyball. And then in Pool D, I see Louisiana winning that pool, because Louisiana's had themselves a great year until they lost to Texas State, which there's no point of crying over spilt milk, and there's no point of them crying over losing to Texas State, because Texas State is indeed a good team. Like I said, they're the powerhouse of the Sun Belt Conference. So now my semifinals would be Louisiana versus Coastal Carolina and Texas State versus UT Arlington. So here's my prediction. If that happens, Coastal Carolina beats Louisiana. Now, here's the thing about Coastal Carolina. They haven't really played the stiffest of all competition. The only stiff competition they've experienced was with Troy, where one of their matchups they had to go 5. And then some of their matchups they had to go 4, but their only match that they've been pushed to 5 sets is against Troy. Now, Louisiana, on the other hand, has had their ups and downs. Like, they had themselves a strong year, and then Texas State kind of rained on their parade. And then Arkansas State pulled a win over them, and then UT Arlington also pulled a win over them in their season, or regular season finale. So, to me, I think Coastal Carolina is going to get a challenge, but I can see them coming out on top. I think Coastal Carolina emerges victorious. I think they may have to go 5 sets with Louisiana, but to me, I think Coastal Carolina has that it factor. I expect Louisiana to come out with some fire. I mean, they'll definitely win their pool play games, but I expect them to give Coastal Carolina their best shot. And they better, otherwise I'll be dang well disappointed. Now for my other semifinal, my other projected semifinal. UT Arlington versus Texas State. And these two teams, let me just tell you about these two teams. These two teams don't really like each other. Like, these two teams are rivals for a reason. Like, the first two matchups between Texas State and UT Arlington, Texas State stomped on UT Arlington. They swept them in both matches. Then they swept them in the previous match before UT Arlington took them down in straight sets this past weekend. So here's my thing about UT Arlington. I think they are the biggest dark horse to win this whole thing. However, I think they can give Texas State a battle. I think their matchup against Texas State is not going to be a sweep on either end. However, I can see Texas State pulling out the victory. It's obviously, I just don't think it's going to end in a sweep. I think Texas State is going to have to go 4 or 5 to beat. Well, obviously they'll have to go 4 or 5 if it's not going to end in a sweep. But I'm going to say Texas State wins in 4 sets over UT Arlington, and then they avenge that last loss to them. So now that would mean the final would be Coastal Carolina and Texas State. So here's the thing. Texas State has had themselves an extended season. They started their season off playing other opponents like Stephen F. Austin, UTEP, which one of those matches against UTEP they lost, which I don't understand how. And then they played Central Arkansas, and then Houston Baptist, which wasn't too big of a deal. And then Coastal Carolina, like I said, they haven't played the stiffest competition. That could come back to haunt them, honestly. Like, it's good that Coastal Carolina has a solid team, but I'm just going to say this. Texas State has been battle-tested. Louisiana, Arkansas State, and UT Arlington were no pushovers for them. They had their matches where they obviously breezed past them, but honestly, I think Texas State is the more better iron-shaped iron versus iron-shaped team. And to me, I think Texas State wins the whole Sun Belt Conference tournament. I don't want to see Coastal Carolina lose, but I just think that's how Texas State is built. Everything in Texas is big, and so are Texas State's victories. And they want to prove to their new head coach that they can win despite being under a new head coach. And to me, I think Texas State has a little bit more Bobcats, or the Bobcats that they have a little bit more claws than the I don't know how to pronounce the Coastal Carolina mascot, and I'm probably not going. I don't know how to pronounce it off the top of my head. But either way, I will say this: it's going to be a fun matchup, and I even said I'm looking forward to seeing Coastal Carolina. Looking to see what they can do in terms of the Sun Belt Conference tournament. And Coastal Carolina's mascot is known as the Chanticleers. So the Chanticleers. Can I just call them the Chants? Either way, it's going to be a fun Sun Belt Conference tournament, and I'm glad that the Sun Belt Conference kept their conference tournament, because I think it's going to be fun. And the fact that they were the only team to have a conference tournament and not like the Big 12 or the ACC kind of makes me wonder that they probably deserve the best grade of all the conferences that played. Obviously, we only had 3 conferences in the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC, and then there's also the Sun Belt Conference. But I think they did the best job of making everything work. And the fact that they even got a Sun Belt Conference tournament is just amazing. And the fact that they're not waiting until next calendar year to do the conference tournament is absolutely amazing. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'm not too big on the Sun Belt Conference, but to me, I'm hooked on it thanks to teams like Coastal Carolina, Texas State, UT Arlington, and Louisiana. So I'm really looking forward to this weekend, and it really sucks that the volleyball fall season is coming to a close, but there will still be a few more episodes. There will be a show next week, don't worry. That's probably going to recap the Sun Belt Conference tournament, and then Kansas State and Baylor, and then pretty much going to go over that's probably going to be it. That's probably going to be it, and then maybe I'll just preview Ole Miss LSU because that's the only matchup going on. And then depending on what's happening, what else is happening, also depends on what could happen going forward with Set Point. So, but I think that's going to do it for tonight's episode of Set Point. Thank you all for tuning in to the chat room. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. If you are listening to this on the live stream, and then if you are listening to this on the replay, I definitely appreciate it. It really means a lot, and it really just means a lot that you're taking time out of your day to listen to some volleyball talk. And yeah, and again, it really means a lot to me because volleyball obviously isn't the most popular sport with like football going around and basketball starting up soon. But I'm glad you all are definitely taking time out of your day to listen to me. I'm not trying to get sappy or emotional. It just really means a lot to me. But there will be an episode of Set Point next week, and then we'll see what happens going forward. So, and I think that's pretty much it. So without any further delay, it is time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you all very much for tuning into tonight's show of Set Point. Make sure you don't go too far because in about 37 minutes, my boy Marcus Holtzgreat will be going live with gloves off. He is here to give you what you want, what you need, and he's going to do it in a crisp iSports Radio Black Tea. So definitely tune into Gloves Off. Make sure to check out all of iSports Radio shows on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, TuneIn, Spotify, you name it. So for everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have a great rest of the night, and I shall see you Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Have a great night, everybody.